What's up, gangsters? How about like 15 minutes of random? That's actually just about one thing, and that's the actual real ending of the bare metal foil project. Okay, so yeah, there it is still. This is the middle of January, and I think I posted the video that I said was the end of this foil adventure like 2 months ago, I don't know, and it legitimately was in the trash can. I threw it away. I even posted pictures of it. And yeah, there were people who were like, dude, you can't quit, anyway. And whether I'm just weak, a slave to my obsessions, or, gonna use all those rationalizations about never giving up, never throwing in the towel, not letting this thing beat me, being the best version of myself, whatever. Yeah, I decided to take it out of the trash and go back to work on it. And part of the reason was because I found finally a source for this stuff. And I think I talked about it in the last segment of the ridiculous foil adventure, which anyway, I would not recommend anybody to watch. Anyway, this stuff initially had great indication for success, and I used it in some places to go ahead and work on this fuselage. And you can see, like, these areas here, they turned out really pretty good. I mean, it was hard. It took me, I don't know, probably 10 tries to get this chin piece where I was satisfied with it. It would just, because even though this stuff showed a lot of promise, it's very unforgiving. It is thinner than bare metal foil. And any little crinkle or anything will give you a problem. And so getting it smooth without tearing it was very difficult. And it goes into a convex shape like this much better than it goes onto a concave. Sorry, I have it backwards. This is concave, innie, cave, innie, convex, outie. Anyway, it went on to, like, I could put it on this. I did it several times. I put it in this little fillet section easily. But I elected not to leave it there because I kept catching the edges and tearing it off. But going over this chin, yeah, it was very difficult. And I never could get it on the nose. Even making it into 3 separate pieces, 1, 2, 3. So I struggled and struggled, but I got it to a point where I was pretty comfortable with it and decided that I was going to carry on. But while I was working on it, this is a game of whack-a-mole, is I kept screwing up other pieces that I had previously put on, and I'd have to go back and replace them. I had to redo this piece here. And you can see that even with the bare minimum of a ghost seam there on the duct, that it showed. And that's one of the things that I learned with this stuff, that because it was so thin, that sanding the surface, even with the minimal amount of EDM texture that is present on this Edward molding, that sanding it first made a huge difference. And that's part of how I got these sections to look so good. But anyway, back to the whack-a-mole thing. So then I started having some lift. You can see this bubble on this old piece. I was going to have to take this off. I tore that little section off there. I was just like, man, I'm discouraged. I need a break from this. And also I had worked a lot on the nose and finally ended up going back to the thicker foil. And you can see that there's a lot of texture in this nose piece from all of the rubbing and smashing that I have to do to, get that to conform. But I thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to get it on there. And I think maybe I can sand it. I had seen some stuff from Richard Seekins where he was using this Tamiya sponge to sand. And I thought, well, the sponge is maybe a little bit thicker and the paper, the abrasive is a little bit thicker. Maybe it'll ride over the bumps a little bit better and I can get as good a result as he's getting. So I thought, well, I'm just going to set this aside. If I can get all the small bits done, get the wing done, then I'll come back and this is all I'll have to do is finish this. So there I went and I worked on the wing, and look, the wing is beautiful. I finished the wing. It's great. This Tamiya LP11 is such a perfect paint to represent the DuPont doped aluminum silver lacquer that went on these things. I mean, that's with no clear coat or anything. That's just sprayed straight out of the airbrush. I mean, it's nice. As you can see, I used Tamiya panel liner. I did the foil. This is the Tamiya foil on that little section there with the landing gear. I made myself some masks and sprayed the insignia. Fought with this one on the top a little bit because that whole business where it has to go over that thing there, but the bottom came out like perfect. Of course, the one on the side you can't fucking see. Anyway, yeah, beautiful. And then still, like, this was the very first thing that I foiled with this whole project. And it's not perfect, still looks okay. Anyway, finished the wing and it was all good. Moved on to doing some of the, I did smaller bits, like finished up the tires, which these are the resin, these are the Edward resin wheels and tires. I wanted them to show just, a little bit of dust from a relatively new tire rolling around on dusty concrete, which is a look I love, so I did that. I decided to just paint some sections that I knew were going to be really difficult to foil, like everything around the this clear piece that is the windscreen. And for that, I went through the process of figuring out, okay, what's the thing that best, that matches the foil the closest, because it's going to be right here, and it's going to be pretty obvious. That's a high visibility, high penalty area, and in terms of tone, that was going to be the closest match, even though this SM206 is supposed to be super chrome silver. And I also decided to use that on places that I just knew were not going to foil well, like the tip of the vertical stabilizer, which looks like it had got a scratch on it there. But that it's pretty indistinguishable. Like, most people are not going to look at that and just immediately go, "Oh, that's not foil. You cheated." It works fine. So I did that, got all the rest of the little small bits done, turned my attention to the flap, the ailerons and the flaps. And this is where things started to not go as well. I thought, it's always the thing that you think is going to be the easiest that ends up being the most troublesome. And I had thought, well, these are, small and flat. They'll be pretty simple. I'll just knock them right out. Yeah, well, that's where I discovered that part of the way that Tamiya has made this stuff not have any glue texture is by very cleverly, come on, focus up there, by very cleverly not using very much glue. Because these parts are pretty flexy, and I discovered that if I wasn't keeping it perfectly flat all the time, there you go. See, from just flexing it, what happened there? Starts to wrinkle and lift, which does not happen with the thicker foil and the and the adhesive that I was using, the Mona Lisa speedball metal leaf sizing stuff. This stuff is great. It is sticky as shit. And I know that because of places where I had problems and I had to peel it back off, and it was not easy to get it off of there. So anyway, that started to be super frustrating with these. And like I ended up having to do these in multiple pieces. Also, the idea that I was going to start on one side and wrap it around the trailing edge and it was all going to be super easy, yeah, not so easy. Because it kept not wrapping perfectly around the edge here, and it would give me like a little flap that wanted to fold over. So I finally got these done where I was satisfied. Decided to turn my attention to the horizontal stabilizers, and I fought with them a lot. Same issues, but I got it all done and they look pretty cool. You know, the difference between the LP11 and the aluminum is really cool. Love that. You can see there's a little bit of a place where I had some glue sink from the Tamiya Extra Thin, and that was there before I glued the elevators in. Anyway, I ran into the same problem of it not wanting to stick very well. You can see right there where it's, you know, it's just been sitting here for a week or two, 3 weeks maybe, and it's trying to lift right there. And poking holes in it, smashing it down, it just doesn't want to stay. Looks wonderful. I sanded these before I applied it. Looks really, really good, but I just had to resign myself that it might only be good enough for long enough to take pictures of it, and that the bottom might never want to be seen again. This one has stayed okay. And I also, you can see, did the thing on the tips there where I sprayed them with that SM206. So yeah, look, there it is. I mean, I got that far. Then came the flaps, and that whole business, not only of it flexing, but temperature started to become an issue, I think, because what you have to keep in mind is that when you put aluminum foil on polystyrene, you're taking a material that has a much higher coefficient of thermal expansion and trying to put it on top of something that has a much lower coefficient of thermal expansion. Yeah, okay, so if you don't know what I just said, those are fancy engineering words for when it gets warmer, aluminum foil expands a lot more than plastic does. And it's wintertime, and even though the temperature in my studio here is, room temperature, it'll vary between like 65 and 80, and yeah, it was a problem. I could not keep it stuck to these things, but also because these are hollow inside, and they would flex while I was working on them. So I even filled these with a mixture of extra thin super glue and dental resin powder. And so these are rigid, completely rigid. And at that point, I was also into my second packet of this stuff. I ran out of the first packet, found some more, ordered 2 new packets, and I don't know what the deal is. This second packet, it may indicate that there's some inconsistency with the product because I cannot get this to stick. I have been round and round with this, and you can see I have squeegeed the shit out of this and just left it sitting there, and it's just coming off. And again, I don't know if that's temperature or what. I mean, but it just won't stay, and that obviously is not. It's just not going to work. So there it is. This is the last thing I did like a few days ago. I was like, okay, I'm going to try again. I even warmed up everything, tried to get it all a consistent temperature. Just didn't work. So yeah, I feel like I have fought the good fight. I have been, diligent. I have tried all the things, and it has just been still an ass whipping. It's like that. Like I was, I used the metaphor before of the crazy chick where the sex is amazing and she's super hot and says sweet things, And you're like, okay, I'm just going to go to counseling. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to be the better man. And you realize that she's still just a dirty, rotten, cheating whore. And you need to be a man and walk away. And so, yep, that is happening for good this time. It is not coming back out of this trash can. I mean, my cleaning lady is coming this afternoon, and she will take all of this out to the incinerator, and it will finally get its where, get what it deserves. Oh, the other thing was that on some of these pieces, I did start to experiment with sanding. Yeah, it didn't go well. The problem is that when the little bumps are as deep or as tall as the thickness of the foil, you're eventually going to sand through them, and you're never going to, it's never going to work. You're going to make it so thin that it's going to start to tear, and it's just going to be, it's just going to be over. So anyway, yeah, it is. It's over.